Hi and welcome to Faith Talks, a series that discusses issues of faith, of God, and as it relates to life today. In this issue, we'll be talking about men and faith. With fewer men in the pews in the churches, are men actually really interested in faith and spirituality? With me in today's discussion program, I have Pastor Patrick Johnson and Dr. Chidi Ngwaba. Welcome. Patrick, are men interested in faith?
Well, in my experience, they are. There's no doubt about it. Men are just as interested in faith as women are. They just don't talk about it in the same way, perhaps. So I'd say yes, they are, definitely.
And Chidi, as a volunteer, aside from all your busy work, you volunteer leading out men's ministry here in the Adventist Church in southern England. Is there really a need for a men's ministry?
That's a very good question, and I hear it often. And I would say a resounding yes. Given the numbers of men that are leaving the church and the lack of men that are joining the church, we have to do something that is targeted to them, to retain them and also to attract them in. And that's what we do in the men's ministry. We just try to help people, especially men, get closer to Jesus.
But as a pastor, Patrick, you know, when you go to a lot of churches, you always see men up on the platform having all the leadership positions. And surely they would know how to minister and cater for men in the congregation. Why do you think Chidi feels there's a need for men's ministry?
You know, several years ago, I read an article that really opened my eyes to the need for this. And it was talking about the solitary male and how in the church you may have men there. They will seek to show their interests through doing things, leading. That's what you talked about. You see men doing that in the church. Yet all too often men are lonely and on their own, and that's what you find in the church. And I think that might explain why so many men kind of in the end just drift away or don't go to church, because you have males who are pretty much islands on their own and not really understanding each other and getting together.
But Chidi, as a woman, I have not been to a men's ministry event. What do? Do you just sit around, watch football or shoot some dart or pool? Or what is men's ministry? Do you sit around and nag about the women in your lives, or you know, what's going on at men's ministry events?
Don't tell her. No.
Well, yes. And, you know, many of those things you've just described are what we do. Yes, sometimes we will sit around and we will watch football. Sometimes we will just go out for a meal. Simple things like that creates an environment where men can relax. You know, the one thing we can't do in church is relax. Okay, so men looking from the outside, looking in a church, everybody's suited and booted and looking so serious, that's not really for me. Ask someone to come round to your home for a meal. Ask them to come round because we're going to watch a football match. People will then relax. And at those points, but we can then start to talk about deeper things, things that are really relevant to their lives, which they could never do in a big old congregation.
And that's a big difference between, I think, men and women in particular. I think ladies have the ability to be able to sit down and talk together, which is a great gift, I would say. But for us men, we don't just sit down and say, now we're going to talk. We almost need to be doing something else, and then the conversations flow naturally as a result of that. And that's why we do these things. That's why we need to be, you know, under the hood of a car doing something, and you're chatting with your mate and doing that kind of stuff.
So you're telling me that from fixing your car, you're suddenly talking about salvation?
Well, that can happen. You know, there can be people asking questions about whatever the might be on their heart. If you're close enough and if you feel comfortable enough to start doing that, you get more under the surface when you're not just talking about the issue, but you've got something else almost taking away the attention from the direct issue.
Yes, exactly. And doing those menial things or simple things, you are building relationships. Yeah. And we're starting to find out, can I trust this guy? Can he trust me? Down the line, maybe weeks or months down the line, sometimes years down the line, we can then get to the root cause of what's bothering you, what's on my heart. That can never happen. That can never happen just with a superficial hello, happy Sabbath, and see you next Sabbath. It just can't happen. We have to be doing something regularly together before we can then start to share what's going on inside of us.
You're actually talking about a different type of friendship, a different type of relationship. You mentioned that women tend to sit down and talk a lot easier together.
Yes.
And I think as women, we're just baffled that men can't do that.
Yes.
And we don't understand how come that men struggle to find male friendship, even when you have faith in common.
Yeah. Well, you know, we are actually wired differently. You know, I'm not going to say men are from Mars, women are from Venus, but sometimes it does look like that. We have a lot of issues in terms of trust.
Yeah.
We find it difficult to trust someone enough to, you know, to tell someone the things that are going on really inside. You know, my faults, actually. Who am I going to tell that to? Can I tell Patrick and be confident that he's not going to go and tell everybody else? That sort of trust has to be built over time. Women, I don't know, it's not all women, I know, but they just seem to be able to connect a lot quicker. You know, they're able to connect a lot easier as well. So we have a few more barriers to get over before we can get to that point.
At the same time, you know, I always wonder if it's a power game for the men. That men are afraid of being vulnerable with each other because it will be used against them. You know, the old saying is, everything you say will be used against you. You know, is that how it feels for men?
I'd say definitely. For many guys will say to me, look, you know, I would talk like this in church, but I just think, you know, this one would say this and go off and tell this person. Men take a lot longer to get to the place where they can actually trust somebody. And, you know, even for me, I have maybe one or two people I can go to and just talk about everything. Not many people. So in church, when you're surrounded by hundreds of people, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen.
I think something else that plays in as well is the fact that I think men tend to be very specific. So when we say something, we do very much mean it. Being married for a number of years, what I do find with my wife, she will say things just to get it off her chest, but doesn't necessarily mean everything she's saying. There may be something else behind. But if a guy says something, he actually means what he's saying. So you have to be careful who you're going to say that to. You don't just say stuff out in the open like that, and no, it's no big deal. It is a big deal when a guy says something.
Yeah.
I think we're coming back to the whole church and men in church. You know, there are fewer men in church than there are women.
Yes.
At least in the church system that we belong to.
Yeah.
Has the church and the way we do church become too feminized?
It's a good point, and many men tell me, especially people who are not churched people, when they look into the church, when they visit the church, they say, yeah, it's okay, but it's really more for the women, isn't it? I say, well, why do you say that? Well, you know, people holding hands and praying and kneeling together and singing songs, and that's just not for me. That's what most men will say. Unless they actually go to a football match. You know, I was at a football match last week. Okay, some of the songs aren't too savoury, but they sing together and they hold hands together. So it's just about context. Yeah. But I think also looking from the outside in, they see a church that is majority women.
We should be happy for a man to go into a church with a majority of women.
I would have thought that would have attracted more men in.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's not happening, but when they see it, they're kind of just a little bit put off. And maybe this ain't for me.
Yeah, I think some of what plays into that is the fact that some of the way in which we portray faith in God and following Jesus has to do with submission. It has to do with being vulnerable, saying that, okay, I don't have it all together. Confession is basically saying, all right, I'm not as good as I would like to portray. And some of that is a difficult journey for guys to do.
Yeah, definitely.
And not that it's unnecessary, it's very necessary. If you think about the founder of Christianity, who is Christ, was a man. He had men around him. He was trying to teach them. You need to be vulnerable in the sight of God. These are things you've got to learn.
Yeah.
And it can be done, but I don't think we should expect men to just do it straight away.
Yeah.
And you're talking about that vulnerability and submissions, which are not really traits that are seen as masculine traits in society.
Yeah.
Masculine traits is about how much can I drink,
Yeah.
how many women can I score, how can I exert my power, and also how strong am I, how much can I fight. So, you know, it's a lot of things that are not necessarily looked upon favorably in the church.
Yeah.
So you have a dichotomy between Christianity and Christian values and what is perceived as masculinity and masculine values. How do you marry those two?
Yes, and you know, and along with those things, how much power do I have? How much money do I have? How much influence do I have? All of those things. But when you boil the human being down to his essence, you know that all of those things are just superficial. Nobody really cares about those things, you know. They always say at your funeral, nobody really says, oh, this guy had a lot of money. It's about what sort of a person this person is. So what we have to do as men and in a men's ministry is try and bring the person to, well, what's important in life. And when you get to what's important in life, you will be talking about, well, how am I in my relationships? Well, you have to be vulnerable for that. How am I doing in my health? You know, am I a role model to these younger people? Those are the things that really make a life, more than the superficial things. So it's about, a bit going back to what we were talking about before, you start with the superficial things. We go and do something together. You build relationships so we can then talk about the deeper, more important things in life.
You know, I had a few months ago, a young man came to my office. He's been to our church a few times. His wife generally attends, and they were having a big problem. And it looked like they were going to split up. And he came to see me. I've tried to talk with him about stuff before, but when that need happened, when the rubber met the road, he needed to come and talk with me about those issues that had arisen in his relationship. And that's when he started thinking about how do I relate to my wife? What kind of a father am I being for my children? And it is a matter of actually being available when that happens, because yes, he was able then to work on things, and things have turned around, and things are working very well. But you know, all the talk in the world beforehand doesn't necessarily get through. But when the rubber really hits the road, but when something or other happens and you start thinking concretely about things, that's when it really made a difference in his life.
Absolutely.
So when you're talking about the concrete things, you're actually talking about direct solutions to specific problems, and not just talking around it. Is that what you're saying? There's a difference
when
there.
you experience that life has really been turned upside down, you know, they were looking at divorce, you know, that really gets your attention big time.
Yes.
When those kind of things happen, that's when I think guys will start thinking, yeah, what is my life actually about? It's not just about this facade. And he was talking about all his drinking partners and what they had been telling him all the time, and how that didn't help in the situation he was in. That's when people start looking at their faith values.
Yeah. And what we try to do in men's ministry is to, yes, find solutions to these real problems, but we use the principles of Christ. So you use Christ's principles to talk about relationships. How do you be a man and a servant and a leader? You talk about Christ's principles when you talk about health and other issues. And then you're able to say, well, look, these are his principles. Okay, let me introduce you to the person. And that's exactly what we try. So we use his principles to solve problems, and then introduce them to the person of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But how do you build those kind of friendships?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you're saying it's when guys are in crisis, that they will contemplate a change in direction, the change in daring to open up, which is seen as very unmasculine, isn't it? To lay yourself bare that way.
Sure.
Does it have to be a crisis before people come to that point?
No.
I don't think so. And I think, as you know, you asked earlier, is it just about watching a match and doing etc.? It's not just about that, but that's the environment you create where you kind of let your guard down a little bit, and you will be willing then to talk about things that really matter to me. So I think that really is part of the aim of some kind of men's ministry. Yeah. Let's create environments where guys can relax. Just take it easy. You don't have to be measuring each other up here, okay? You can take it easy. Let's play some table tennis, and while I'm waiting on the sideline, I get to know you a little bit, but that's okay, and we can play again. And it's creating those kind of atmospheres. It doesn't have to be a crisis, but create atmospheres where guys can actually relax.
So you're actually saying it's in a way creating safe spaces for guys to be able to express themselves without it following them around.
Exactly. And at those times, people will be able to say, well, this is what I'm doing with my life. And then Patrick can say to me, well, you know what, that happened to me. And actually, if you leave it like that, Chidi, you can end up with such and such and such. So you can actually ward off crises that way. If you have someone to talk to, if you have someone you can trust and open up to about anything, then those crises do not have to come. But if they do come, at least you've got some people that you can trust.
Well, as you mentioned before, girls and women tend to have more closer friends.
Yes.
Now, with you recognizing the benefits of having close friends,
yes,
I'm going to challenge you. How many close friends do you actually have of male friends?
I have.
So we can talk in principle, but are you living it out?
Yeah, it's a good question. I only have two. That you can talk at that deeper level. I only have two, and I think you talk to most guys. You don't have loads of them. No. There's usually one or two.
Yeah, same for me as well. It's kind of enough. So yeah, I have a couple of guys. Actually, it is only two. Yeah.
But how do you develop that? I mean, how do you come to that point where you have a friend, a guy friend, that you can be that close with?
And that's a good question for me, because in fact I remember when I first became the leader of men's ministry, I thought to myself, well, Chidi, you are going to have to make yourself vulnerable. There's no point you just going around talking and talking. You have to make yourself vulnerable and have those deep relationships yourself. Because left to my own devices, I'd be happy on my own. That's how I feel. So for me, in order to get those relationships, I had to actually force myself, go through the pain of it, telling somebody, not knowing what the response may be, and go for it personally for myself. And when you do start to build up a small relationship, you just build on it. You build on it, and you tell people. I have this tendency of keeping things to myself a lot, but I've been forcing myself to unload a bit and not thinking I'm just burdening somebody. It's actually they appreciate it, they actually enjoy it. And I've learned from that, so I'm able to help others.
I think that is part of the key, that you have to basically go into that uncharted water yourself.
It's painful.
You've got to start conquering that land, which looks very daunting for yourself. And once you've experienced that, you can say to somebody else, well, what helped me was
exactly.
This is what I do. This kind of a relationship with somebody has helped me, and then you can pass it on to somebody else, and that's very important, because it's one thing to talk about it on a conceptual level, but it's another thing when you know for your own self, this has been my experience.
Yeah.
And Patrick, you talked early on, and you kind of confirmed that as well, Chidi, that a lot of men are very lonely in our churches. They come in and they see nobody that not necessarily looks like them, but that seems to be interested in the same things. It's how do you, and then again, both of you are talking about that hesitation to actually move forward and make yourself vulnerable and build a friendship.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you two as leaders bridge and help men to move forward in that manner?
So that's, and this is where we come to part of the role of a men's ministry in a church. There has to be a bridge between that gap, that the individual there who doesn't see that he fits in or relates to anybody, even though there may be hundreds of people in that church that he could relate to. We have to be that bridge, and we do that by getting him involved with us, just doing simple things. I always say to people in men's ministry, just do simple things. Invite someone over to watch a football game or for a meal. Then in that space, you'll find out that there are lots of people like you, lots of people with similar backgrounds and views to you. From that, you can start building relationships. And it's all about relationships. Once you have relationships being built, it's very difficult for people just to then walk away. Very difficult.
I guess part of the challenge for the women maybe is that they keep saying this to us. But it's not until it's not until another guy kind of takes you along and does it with you that you actually will do something about it. This is my wife's constant challenge. You know, often it's not until I've read it in a book that's when I will do something, even though she's been saying for a long time.
Yes.
So I think that really is it. So nagging won't help us, I'm afraid. It'll only be if we. I think it needs guys to come alongside somebody else and say, walk with me a little bit.
Yeah.
It really is that.
You're actually talking about mentoring here in a way, aren't
Oh,
you?
yeah.
You know, you're talking about, you know, you can talk about all the practical things you do, the football, the car mechanics and all of that.
Yeah.
But, you know, when the rubber hits the road, it's all about our faith development, isn't it?
Yeah.
Our development in that personal relationship with the Savior. But how do you grow from the practical nitty-gritty of watching that football game or that fixing that car? How do you help other men develop their faith walk? Because that must be the key for what men's ministry and what a church should be helping men with.
Absolutely. The whole goal for men's ministry is bringing people to Christ. That is the headline. Bring people to Jesus Christ. And there are just so many ways you can do that. The ways we've just been talking about is just mentoring, showing people. Especially, let's talk about some teenagers, young men. Do they have a model of what a Christian is? The idea of who a Christian is sometimes not that attractive. As you said, probably wimpish, doesn't do anything, boring, you know. They need mentors that can say to them, look, you can be an interesting guy. You can have a decent life. You can be into football or whatever, but still relate to Jesus Christ. So that kind of modelling is certainly what the young people need. Not just the young people, you know, anybody who's coming to Christ. But when they see how you relate to Christ, they can say, oh, well, yeah, it's not as bad as I thought. He seems to be an all right, decent guy as well. He's not crazy. You know, I can introduce him to some of my friends. Maybe there's a future there. But I think that mentoring, that role modelling is vital.
And when you think, as I mentioned before, that really is what Jesus did.
Yeah.
He took some guys and said, come and follow me a little bit and see how I do life, really, and learn from what I do. And yeah, it was very attractive. And look at what Christianity has become today because of it. So it's a very powerful way of doing things.
But how do you share your faith?
Yeah.
When we talked about relationship building and how important that is.
Yeah.
Because in my experience, and of course I'm not part of your men's group,
Sure.
I only hear men talking about faith if they're preaching.
Yeah.
That would be the only forum that men will express faith verbally.
Yeah.
How does that look? For those of us who are curious, sitting on the outside, how do men express their faith as they grow?
Well, I like to talk about what Christ has done for me. You know, I look at my life and I say, well, he's taken me so far. How he blesses you. Some of the aspects of men's ministry is about health. Well, what Christ has done for me in my health because of his principles. What Christ has done for me in my relationships because of his principles. And by showing people, hopefully, you know, nobody's perfect, but by seeing something about us, they'll say, well, yeah, you know, maybe Christ has got something to do with it. And then once you see what Christ has done for them, you introduce them to the person who Jesus Christ really is. Yes, he can heal you. Yes, he can sort out your relationship. Yes, he can make you into whatever you want to be in your goals. But more important, he just wants to be your friend too. And so I show people how I relate to Christ, how I spend time with Christ, go places with Christ. And when people see that, they find out their own way. You know.
I'm going to challenge you, Patrick, a little bit, because you talked earlier about the concreteness of set plans of moving forward. So how concretely, so how much are you actually implementing men's ministry in your church? How do you actually think about these principles? And what are you practically doing to implement them?
Well, for us, we do things mainly around different ministries in church. So, for for example, we're really blessed with a lot of very good musicians, and most of them tend to be guys, guitarists, etc. And so they will run workshops on how to play guitar better, etc. And that way you get guys coming in, and they kind of form their own kind of group with whatever it is that they're wanting to do. We have quite a few that are joining in a team, and it's about creating teams. That has to do with filming and media and things like that, technical stuff, you know, that guys like to get their heads around often. Not just guys, but mainly guys. And so that's the way we do it. We have tried to start something we called men's ministries, and it didn't work. So we thought, okay, let's just get guys together around different types of ministries. Yeah. And it's the same thing. It kind of works. We don't have anybody we call the men's ministries leader, but you see men getting involved in things in that way, and that's the way we do it. We are planning to get a table tennis table, though, that I'm looking forward to.
But I think, you know, I think also as both of you are leaders, and don't come across as wimps.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not to too many.
Yes.
No, you don't. How do you model masculinity and faith? How do you model that Christian masculine man who dares to be vulnerable and who dares to actually be submissive as well? Yes. How do you model that so it becomes attractive for a 15-year-old who is struggling?
Yeah, I mean, it brings us to one of the big areas of men's ministry, which is, you know, family life, let's say, relating to your wife or relating to women in general. That is a big question for men. How am I supposed to relate to a woman? How do I be a masculine man? And I always say, look, when you look at Jesus Christ and what he was, I mean, forget about the pictures of him. He was actually a tough guy. I mean, he was a carpenter. He was a tough guy. No one's going to call him a wimp. He was not afraid of anybody. But still, he spent all of his time in service to the ones around him. So if somebody wants to look at me and my family, I'm not saying all the time, I'm not perfect, but, you know, my job is to elevate my wife. My job is to help my wife and look at her goals and look at her dreams and help her to achieve them. And God tells me that if I'm helping her and supporting her, he's going to look after me. And I guess those looking on would have to say, well, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Is it working for you, Chidi? Well, when I do what I'm told to do by God, it works. You know, every time, you know, we all slip. Nobody's perfect, but really getting that point across in that we are servants. You know, leadership is about servanthood. Leadership is not just about telling people what to do. It's about saying, well, how can I serve that person to the best of my ability? And that is exactly what Christ did.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here in the studio, and thank you for giving a glimpse into what it means to be men of faith and how you can share and develop faith with younger men and other men. And I'll try not to nag my husband too much, but I'm sure that's still going to happen as I see the importance of men's ministry today. And why don't you join the conversation by joining us on Facebook or by sending us an email? I look forward to hear from you. Thank you for watching.